A sigh of relief today as confusion swirls over the prospects of a peace deal with Iran and the president's posts alarming Truth Social threats directed toward Iranian civilians. Donald Trump says he won't use a nuclear weapon against the country.
Sir, would you use a nuclear weapon against Iran? You posted on Truth Social
a few
weeks ago.
We don't need it. Why do I need it? Why would a stupid question like that be asked? Why would I use a nuclear weapon when we've totally, in a very conventional way, decimated them without it? No, I wouldn't use it. A nuclear weapon should never be allowed to be used by anybody.
Joining me now is our friend Miles Taylor, former chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security and founder of Defiance.org. So welcome. Miles, do Trump's comments there reassure you? Because he pretty clearly shut that one down.
They don't at all. And it wasn't a stupid question for Liz Landers to ask him. Liz asked the question because it is Donald Trump who has threatened that a civilization will die tonight. I'm going to tell you right now, Alex, as a very grotesque but practical matter, you can't kill 90 million people with handguns or small bombs, okay? When Donald Trump makes a threat like that, he's talking about the deployment of nuclear weapons. And so it's very reasonable that Liz asked him that question. And let me tell you this, Alex. I mean, this is the same Donald Trump who in the first term, in the 2.5 years that I was working under him, fantasized about using a nuclear weapon, terrified his national security team by flirting with nuclear war, took us almost to the brink of nuclear war with North Korea, so much so that the Department of Homeland Security had to prepare for the possibility that we might be in a nuclear exchange and we would have to do emergency response on the home front. That had never happened at DHS in its whole history until Donald Trump put us in that position. And by the way, Alex, Donald Trump has a big red button on his desk meant to symbolize the big red nuclear button that people talk about in popular literature. A man who has something like that is a man who wants you to think about how he could potentially use nuclear weapons. And the last thing I'll add on to that is this is the same Trump who just a few months ago, for the first time since the Cold War, ordered the military to resume nuclear testing, live nuclear testing. That's something we haven't seen since the early 1990s, and for a reason, because when you blow off the bombs, it encourages other countries to test and results in nuclear proliferation. Donald Trump has been desperate to set off a nuke since he first came into the presidency, and despite what he just said, I still very, very much worry about his finger on that proverbial button.
Well, and look, we should say it is a symbolic button. But that said, it's your experience based on the first term. You have not worked with him since the second term. There have got to be people around him in the White House that would say, hang on, even if he had a flirtation, as you describe it now. So I'm just saying I don't want everyone to get a bit over alarmed, but I understand from your experience how you're like, you're keeping an eye on all of this, understandably so. That said, we have the Department of Justice that filed fraud charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center for its use of paid informants to infiltrate far-right groups. It happened a little after 1 a.m. Friday morning when the president posted, quote, "This is another Democrat hoax, along with Act Blue and many others. If it is true, the 2020 presidential election should be permanently wiped from the books and be of no further force or effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT," which kind of doesn't even make sense because it happened. You can't rewrite the history and what we've all experienced. That said, you write, the SPLC charges will be Trump's template for prosecuting the entire American left. How so, and why tie this to the 2020 election?
Well, first of all, I can't even answer the question about the tie to 2020. I have no idea, Alex. I mean, I don't even know how the president's brain was making those connections. I think it's very unusual, not a good sign that he's connecting two totally disparate things. But, as far as the template he's going to use, look, the big question hanging over these charges is, what was the probable cause? What was the reasonable suspicion? What was the predicate that led to this investigation? Nothing's been revealed from the Justice Department to show why they decided to charge SPLC when they did. The only thing we can seem to find in the public record is that Trump officials have had a lot of animosity towards the SPLC, an organization which, by the way, has named certain Trump officials on its hate watch lists, people like White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and a lot of them for a very long time have politically had animus toward that organization. And then, perhaps unsurprisingly, Donald Trump comes back into office and they find a reason to charge the organization. And I will say a very, very odd reason. They're alleging that the SPLC has effectively funded terrorism instead of opposing domestic terrorism because they paid informants inside some of these domestic extremist groups like the KKK. That doesn't even stand up to reason. I mean, Alex, when I was in government, we paid informants all the time to help us expose terrorist organizations. When we had informants inside of cells tied to ISIS, we didn't say that we were secretly funding ISIS by doing that. Federal law enforcement does this every day. And by the way, we used to have a relationship in federal law enforcement with the SPLC. In fact, some of their information helped stop some of these hate groups and helped save lives. So I don't think this thing is going to withstand scrutiny in the courts. I think the goal is to punish them through the legal process for political reasons. And I suspect that's what the SPLC is going to fight.
Yeah, that's been an effort that's been done numerous times from this administration. That said, it is a nationwide day of action today opposing the Trump administration's plans to convert commercial warehouses into these mega detention centers. You well know this because you're part of a network of organizations mobilizing communities against these facilities. You've got headlines, Miles, across the country indicating local communities are fighting back. Yesterday, the Arizona Attorney General sued DHS and ICE leaders to block a proposed ICE detention facility. It's in Surprise, Arizona, saying they failed to even discuss it with the community.
They did not ask whether the water and wastewater and power infrastructure of this community could support a detention facility the size of 7 football fields. They just bought a warehouse for $70 million, handed a $300 million contract to a private company called GardaWorld, and told Surprise to deal with it.
So this pressure campaign, is it working?
I think it is working, Alex. I mean, we have seen a number of these facilities stopped before they were opened because communities became aware of them early enough. That happened in Ashland, Virginia. It's happened in New Hampshire and other locations. Now, this one, the community found out a little bit late and the facility was purchased. DHS has been renovating it. But there is an effort across this country to mobilize. And one of the things that we announced this week is a group of nonpartisan, nonprofit organizations announced GTFO ICE.org, which is basically a nationwide alert network that people can sign up for to see if one of these facilities is being opened in their communities, to make them aware so they can have a say about whether a prison camp ends up in their backyard. People can sign up, anyone around the country, GTFOICE.org. And there's a reason for doing that, Alex. And I'll tell you, this is not business as usual inside of DHS. Right now, the department is building a network of these ICE detention facilities that would allow DHS to have more detention capacity than the entire federal prison system. Think about that for a second. The Justice Department oversees about 150,000 detention beds in prisons across this country. If DHS goes forward with this plan, they'll have 175,000 detention beds across this country and far less oversight and accountability. That's not normal. And they're doing it very fast, and they're doing it in secret. And so that's why we think it's important to have a nationwide network so people are aware and people can weigh in. And we've been involved in engaging in the state of Arizona, in Surprise, Arizona, to help that community figure out ways to slow this process down so they can have a say.